Yo, what's up, everybody? I thought I would get in on this whole Tucker Carlson thing. See what he has to say. Here we go.
We're in Moscow tonight. We're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We'll be doing that soon. There are risks to conducting an interview like this, obviously, so we thought about it carefully over many months. Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people. 2 years into a war that's reshaping the entire world, most Americans are not informed. They have no real idea what's happening in this region, here in Russia or 600 miles away in Ukraine. But they should know. They're paying for much of it in ways they might not fully yet perceive. The war in Ukraine is a human disaster. It's left hundreds of thousands of people dead, an entire generation of young Ukrainians, and it's depopulated the largest country in Europe. But the long-term effects are even more profound. This war has utterly reshaped the global military and trade alliances, and the sanctions that followed have as well. And in total, they have upended the world economy. The post-World War II economic order, the system that guaranteed prosperity in the West for more than 80 years, is coming apart very fast, and along with it, the dominance of the US dollar. These are not small changes. They are history-altering developments. They will define the lives of our grandchildren. Most of the world understands this perfectly well. They can see it. Ask anyone in Asia or the Middle East what the future looks like. And yet the populations of the English-speaking countries seem mostly unaware. They think that as nothing has really changed. And they think that because no one has told them the truth. Their media outlets are corrupt. They lie to their readers and viewers. And they do that mostly by omission. For example, since the day the war in Ukraine began, American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they have done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky, and we hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people. At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too. Freedom of speech is our birthright. We were born with the right to say what we believe. That right cannot be taken away no matter who is in the White House. But they're trying anyway. Almost 3 years ago, the Biden administration illegally spied on our text messages and then leaked the contents to their servants in the news media. They did this in order to stop a Putin interview that we were planning. Last month, we're pretty certain they did exactly the same thing once again. But this time, we came to Moscow anyway. We are not here because we love Vladimir Putin. We are here because we love the United States, and we want it to remain prosperous and free. We paid for this trip ourselves. We took no money from any government or group, nor are we charging people to see the interview. It is not behind a paywall. Anyone can watch the entire thing, shot live to tape and unedited, on our website, tuckercarlson.com. Elon Musk, to his great credit, has promised not to suppress or block this interview once we post it on his platform, X, and we're grateful for that. Western governments, by contrast, will certainly do their best to censor this video on other less principled platforms because that's what they do. They are afraid of information they can't control. But you have no reason to be afraid of it. We are not encouraging you to agree with what Putin may say in this interview, but we are urging you to watch it. You should know as much as you can. And then, like a free citizen and not a slave, you can decide for yourself. Thanks.
All right, I'm really excited. I thought it was gonna happen tonight. search. Oh.
What about Taylor Swift?
She sucks.
Ha!
Who do you think will win the 2024 election in the United States?
Everyone knows President Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. And as soon as he takes back the White House, he's probably gonna whoop some ass.
What do you think about Bud Light?
Gay. Piss. Gay piss.
Gay piss.
Who killed Jeffrey Epstein?
That's easy. Hillary did it. We don't call her Hillary Clinton for no reason.
What about Taylor Swift?
She sucks.
Who do you think will win the 2024 election in the United States?
Everyone.
Okay, obviously that was a parody. Let's search Alex Jones. Alright, sorry guys. They told me it was 6 p.m. So it's 12 minutes after. But
including in the South and West. This all lasted until the revolution. Before World War I, Austrian General Staff relied on the ideas of Ukrainianization and started actively promoting the ideas of Ukraine and the Ukrainianization. So the idea which had emerged in Poland that people residing in that territory were allegedly not really Russians, but
alright, they obviously are having some sort of technical difficulties. Hold on. I thought it was going to be on X. Alright, sorry guys. It's on Alex Jones, but I can't find it. I mean, I can find it. But it's a really bad connection. It's breaking the internet right now.
offered Poland peace and a treaty of friendship. An alliance demanding in return that Poland give back to Germany the so-called Danzig corridor, which connected the bulk of Germany with East Prussia and Königsberg.
С Кёнигсбергом и с Восточной Пруссией.
After World War I,
What is Tucker's website, though? Hold on.
Danzig, a city of Dansk, emerged.
И вместо Данцига появился.
Hitler asked them to give it amicably, but they refused.
Of course.
Still, they collaborated with Hitler and engaged together
И вместе занялись
in the partitioning of Czechoslovakia.
But may I ask you, you're making the case that Ukraine, certainly parts of Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine, is in effect Russia has been for hundreds of years. Why wouldn't you just take it when you became president 24 years ago? You have nuclear weapons, they don't. If it's actually your land, why did you wait so long?
Sure.
I'll tell you. I'm coming to that. This briefing is coming to an end. It might be boring, but it explains many things.
I just don't know how it's relevant.
Ну, отлично. Тогда мне очень
Good.
приятно, что вы так это оценили.
Good.
Спасибо большое.
I'm so gratified that you
The
appreciate
following is an interview
you.
with the president of Russia,
So,
Vladimir
before World War
Putin,
II,
shot
Putin
February
collaborated with
6,
Hitler,
2024 at
and
about 7
although it
p.m. in the
did not
building
yield
behind
to
us, which
Hitler's
is, of
demands,
course, the Kremlin.
it still participated
The interview,
in the
as you will see if you
partitioning of
watch it, is
Czechoslovakia
primarily
together
about the
with
war
Hitler.
in progress, the war in Ukraine, how it started, what's happening, and most pressingly, how it might end. One note before you watch. At the beginning of the interview, we asked the most obvious question, which is, why did you do this? Did you feel a threat, an imminent physical threat? And that's your justification. And the answer we got shocked us. Putin went on for a very long time, probably half an hour, about the history of Russia going back to the 8th century. And honestly, we thought this was a filibustering technique and found it annoying and interrupted him several times. And he responded he was annoyed by the interruption. But we concluded in the end, for what it's worth, that it was not a filibustering technique. There was no time limit on the interview. We ended it after more than 2 hours. Instead, what you're about to see seemed to us sincere, whether you agree with it or not. Vladimir Putin believes that Russia has a historic claim to parts of Western Ukraine. So our opinion would be to view it in that light, as a sincere expression of what he thinks. And with that, here it is. Mr. President, thank you. On February 22nd, 2022, you addressed your country in a nationwide address when the conflict in Ukraine started. And you said that you were acting because you had come to the conclusion that the United States, through NATO, might initiate a, quote, surprise attack on our country. And to American ears, that sounds paranoid. Tell us why you believe the United States might strike Russia out of the blue. How did you conclude that?
Да, дело не в том, что Америка
It's not that America, the United States, was going to launch a surprise strike on Russia. I didn't say that.
Или у нас
Are we having a talk show or a serious conversation?
Here's the quote. Thank you. It's a formidable, serious
Так вот, да, это серьезный разговор. Но поскольку у вас базовое образование...
Because your basic education is in history, as far as I understand.
Yes.
Тогда я позволю себе...
So if you don't mind, I will take only 30 seconds or 1 minute to give you a short reference to history for giving you a little historical background.
Please.
Ну, смотрите, с чего
Let's
началась...
look where our relationship with Ukraine started from.
Откуда она взялась?
Where did Ukraine come from?
Российское государство стало
The
собирать...
Russian state started gathering itself as a centralized statehood,
Годом создания российского государства.
and it is considered to be the year of the establishment of the Russian state in 862,
Новгород на северо-западе страны.
when the townspeople of Novgorod invited a Varangian prince, Rurik, from Scandinavia to reign.
Варягов. 862 год. В 1800
In 1862, Russia celebrated the 1000th anniversary of its statehood.
своей государственности и в Новгороде.
And in Novgorod, there is a memorial dedicated to the 1000th anniversary of the country.
В 1882 году
In 882, Rurik's successor, Prince Oleg, who was actually playing the role of regent at Rurik's young son,
по сути, функция регента
because Rurik had died by that time, came to Kiev.
к этому времени пришел в Киев, отстранил от власти двух братьев,
He ousted two brothers who apparently had
членами дружины Рюрика,
once been members of Rurik's squad.
имея два центра в Киеве и в Новгороде.
So Russia began to develop with two centers of power, Kiev and Novgorod.
Следующая очень значимая дата в истории
The
России.
next very significant date in the history of Russia was 988.
Владимир,
This was the baptism of Russia, when Prince Vladimir, the great-grandson of Rurik, baptized Russia and adopted Orthodoxy, or Eastern Christianity.
централизованное российское государство.
From this time, the centralized Russian state began to strengthen.
Единая территория.
Why? Because of the single territory, integrated economic ties,
Один язык.
one and the same language, and, after the baptism of Russia, the same faith and rule of the prince. The centralized Russian state began to take shape.
Российское государство.
Back in the Middle Ages, Prince Yaroslav the Wise introduced the order of succession to a throne.
На введение престола наследия
But after he passed away, it became complicated for various reasons.
Чуть-чуть попозже, после того, как он ушел из жизни.
The throne was passed not directly from father to eldest son, but from the prince who had passed away to his brother, then to his sons in different lines.
Потом сыновьям по разным линиям. Все это привело к
All this led to the fragmentation and the end of Rus as a single state.
привело к раздробленности.
There was nothing special about it. The same was happening then in Europe.
Но раздробленное русское государство стало легкой добычей.
But the fragmented Russian state became an easy prey to the empire created earlier by Genghis Khan.
Хан Батый пришли на Русь,
His successors, namely Batu Khan, came to Rus, plundered and ruined nearly all the cities. The southern part, including Kiev, by the way, and some other cities, simply lost independence, while northern cities preserved some of their sovereignty.
в Орду. Но часть суверенитета сохранили.
They had to pay tribute to the horde, but they managed to preserve some part of their sovereignty.
Начало складываться единое российское государство.
And then a unified Russian state began to take shape with its center in Moscow.
Оно начало
The southern part of Russian lands, including Kiev,
к тому центру, который складывался.
began to gradually gravitate towards another magnet, the center that was emerging in Europe.
Его даже называли Литовская Русь.
This was the Grand Duchy of Lithuania.
Составляли значительную
It was even called the Lithuanian-Russian Duchy, because Russians were a significant part of this population.
славными.
They spoke the old Russian language and were Orthodox.
Объединение, уния Великое княжество Литовское.
But then there was a unification, the union of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland.
Написано. Уже в духовной сфере.
A few years later, another union was signed,
Священников подчинилось власти.
but this time already in the religious sphere.
И таким образом вот эти земли.
Some of the Orthodox priests became subordinate to the Pope. Thus, these lands became part of the Polish-Lithuanian state.
Ополячиванием этой части населения. Язык внедряли туда свой.
During decades, the Poles were engaged in Polonization of this part of the population.
Они живут у края.
They introduced their language there, tried to entrench the idea that this population was not exactly Russians,
На окраине
that because they lived on the fringe, they were Ukrainians.
занимается
Originally, the word Ukrainian meant that a person was living on the outskirts of the state, along the fringes, or was engaged in a border patrol service. It didn't mean any particular ethnic group.
поляки всячески
So the Poles were trying to,
относились
in every possible way, to colonize this part of the Russian lands and actually treated it
Alright, well, I guess Tucker doesn't want people watching. I don't know why. That's kind of stupid. Alright, I tried. I think people need to hear why we are at war with Ukraine, with Russia, and paying billions of dollars out of our tax dollars. You know what? I don't get it. I wanted to hear why it's happening, and apparently